Hey everybody, Rich here, South Florida Beekeeping with Rich. Not too often we have a chance to do a do-over, but we're doing a do-over on this one. I went to see the supervisor a few days ago and said, hey, why don't you come out and tape me while I'm building the frames? And we did a video of me building the frames, but I had 24 frames here and everything was piled and stacked and junk and garbage and blah, blah. And I said, I just really don't like that. And there's no reason why I can't just build one frame and show you guys what's going on. So um, these are the frames for the Poppleton Hive. They are asymmetrical frames. The railings go down one side and the bee space is all on one side here. So that when two frames touch together, it gives you bee space on either side of a comb. Now these frames can only be put in one way, correct way. If you put them the wrong way, you're going to have dead brood. But the first one I built a little more according to the instructions that were given in a 1914 article on his frames, where he did cut-ins from the side to anchor these, and he had a much deeper cut through here that he would cover with a little piece of wood, take off, and take a look at what the bees were doing. And I went ahead and put in a couple of dowels because, hey, why not? But I went, man, that's a lot of work. And this is a fiddly bit right here that I may not get right every time. And I don't want to waste a whole bunch of wood, tossing pieces that I didn't get right. So I went online and I found a guy who was making his own Lazutin type frames. It wasn't a YouTube video, it was just an article that he did. And what he did basically was build a box. All right. And it was attached to the top bar. So that's the way we're going to do them now. But the way this gets done, I'll show you the easiest way I found to do it. So here's your top bar. It's got the size. In this case, it's 1.25 inches.
And the notch in the front is 4.
The notch here is so that there is a place to insert your hive tool to break the frame apart to make it easier to access the interior frame. Okay. The top bar in this instance is 1.25 inches. Because remember, brood frames are 1.25 inches. Honey frames are 1.5 inches. The 1 3/8, which you see on a standard frame for a Langstroth hive, which are called Hoffman frames, by the way, not Langstroth frames. His were more like this, except straight-sided. So the correct amount for honey is 1.5 inches. The correct amount for brood is 1.25 inches. 1 3/8 is a compromise, which is used across the board. If you're making your own frames, you don't have to compromise. So I'm making 1.25 inch frames that'll go for brood. And I went ahead and made all these 1.25 inches because it's no problem at all to take some pieces of wood and slip down beside the 1.25 inches and make them into 1.5 inches. Or even to just go ahead and glue the piece on the back and make it permanent that way when we see how this all plays out. So that's why these are actually 1.25 inches. Now, beyond that, we're going to be making a box. Here's one end of the box, these two pieces of the box and the piece across here. This is so that we have basically a 12 by 12. Now, to make a 12 by 12 box this way, it means you have these two pieces, if they were here, would be 12 inches. All right? And the other two are going to be two thicknesses less than 12 inches. That's most easily done by making a jig. So the first thing we're going to do is take two of these pieces and make two 12-inch pieces. Now here's the thing. All you have to do is rip a bunch of wood. You don't have to make any fiddly measurements. You take two pieces of the cutoff from this, which in this case are these two, you've made this jig. This jig is held in place by some super glue permanent mounting tape. It's not permanent, but this piece of mounting tape laid across there, you lay that on there. It's plenty firm enough so that you can replicate this 50 times if you want to. But then you take two spacings for whatever that cut was, and you don't have to measure it even. Yours don't have to be the same as mine. You just take two spacings.
And you're rubber banding them to.
I'm rubber banding them because I don't want to make it a permanent, because I want
But
to
you're
go.
rubber banding them to the piece of wood that was on the jig?
I'm rubber banding with the piece of wood that was on the jig that came up high enough so that I could do this.
Okay.
Oh, okay. So now we take two more of these cuts of wood that we made from a piece of scrap. We don't need this. So now we have two that are shorter than the other two. One of the short pieces goes here. To make this easy on myself, I made a jig. The jig is going to center this on this piece from end to end. There you go. So
it's just a piece of wood with the amount cut out of it.
It's a piece of wood, this amount cut out of it. These two stand here like this. This piece will go up here on the other end, that same way. Making your own frames doesn't have to be the arcane difficult thing that you might think it is, with all those precision jigs and cutouts and all that. It's lovely. And I do it this way. I just bump it to there, get it jiggled on there.
And because these are asymmetrical, you don't have to center that. You can line it up with the edge.
It is to be lined up with, you have to line it up with the edge.
Okay.
You see. Now, in reality, what I did at this point was clamp these with a couple of plastic clamps, and I left them overnight, 24 of them, and came back the next day. We're not going to do that today, so the other one. No, I'm going to use this one. Interesting. I appear to have a dead battery. Be right back. There we go. Double check. Testing 1, 2, 3. Better to check twice. Okay, so here's our foundation. The next thing we do is take these two, the longer ones that are going to go this way. You drill a hole at each end. Obviously very close to the edge, approximately half the thickness of this. The amusing thing is these are actually frame nails. They used to come for free whenever you bought frames. Nowadays you have to buy them. I still had lots of them from when I was assembling frames, and they did send them to you for free. Oh, how the world has changed.
So this part here is basically what looks like the only kind that's a little fiddly, where you're trying to line up both sides at the same time.
I'm not lining up both sides at the same time. I'm just lining up this side right now, and then I'll adjust that one. That's why it's glue and nails.
What should they do if they happen to split the wood?
The wood on here?
Yeah.
Well, you've got two choices. You either make another piece and do it again, or you can glue up your split with a clamp on it. It's just whatever your level of comfort and skill is. Most important thing is to have a nice sharp edge to drop the edge here. If you are on a rounded surface, you're likely to screw up. Now, looking at that, you can see it's slightly twisted, which is why I have a pane of heavy glass here from an end table, because obviously these tables bow and such. This stays nice and flat. You get to check it, and here's a lovely part of this. All you have to do is it's flat there, it's flat there, nothing's jiggling. You let the glue all harden, and you're good to go on that. Now, this is how I made all my frames. And then I finally started getting a response from IE Root Company, the people who own Dadant and the people who own American, Bee Culture magazine, uh, asking if they had any historical documentation on the American frame that they were selling back in their 1914 catalog. And I got a number of patents for the King American frame from like 1914, 1912, and that sort of thing. And the only place I seemed to be off was when I put these frames looking like this into the hive I've just built. Some of them went wonky in different ways, and I thought to myself, I need to put a spacer on there to make sure these things don't end up touching. And sure enough, when they sent me the uh, patents, there was a little spacer on them. So all you have to do is do a cut off. One of the pieces that you cut off from there, they look like this, and you take your knife and split it, because it's not, if you don't split it evenly, that doesn't matter, because that's not the way you're doing it. You're doing it thickness wise here. Okay, so they're going to be the same thickness either way you do it. This one may be a little skinnier, this one may be a little fatter.
You're just gluing them on?
I'm just gluing them on. There it is. Make sure I get the right side. Fatter is better. More contact surface for the glue. So all I have to do is kind of check for squareness. Not square enough. The nice thing is there's a nail in there. It can be flexed. And when the glue hardens, everything will be fine. Yep, there we go.
So you make sure it's flat, and then you square up the sides.
That's it.
2 dimensions.
Yep.
And then you put your little spacers on. That gives you your 3rd dimension for spacing. And that's it.
Yep, notice, just make sure they're on the same side that the B space is on here.
And not on the side where the cutout is.
Yeah. Now, there was a comment that has been made in bee journals and such that it's a good idea to take a staple and put a staple on the 2 sides here sticking out 1/4 of an inch. And I'm going to try that because that way you can never pry this out and press it up against the side of the hive and pull it out that way, rolling and perhaps killing bees or perhaps your queen. So we might want to take a staple or a push pin. You can find a push pin that has a 1/4 inch head on it, or even just take a nail, a small nail like this, and drive it in so that you're leaving it spaced 1/4 of an inch out.
Thumbtack with a rounded head might work too.
If it's too rounded, no, but if it's at the 1/4 inch mark, then thumbtack would, yes. I was actually talking about a thumbtack, but I have some thumbtacks in my room that have wooden heads that happen to be 3/8 of an inch. It's like a piece of wooden dowel with the nail right in the middle of it. They're all perfectly aligned. They're manufactured, to precise measurements. They're all exactly 3/8 of an inch. I can either touch them to a sander and bring them down, or I can try leaving them at 3/8 of an inch.
So they sell plastic push pins. You wouldn't recommend that.
They're too far out.
Gotcha. They're too big.
They're too far out. Now, if you have the patience, the plastic push pin is perfect. You simply have to put it on a grinder and grind it down to either 3/8 or 1/4 of an inch, because that's a good solid lock. Plastic's fine, but I just don't think I'd have the patience to sit there holding them with a pair of pliers going zzz, 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 like that. Yeah, not me.
Sure anything else you need to tell us about the frames?
No, that's pretty much it. I was doing 24 of them the other day, and that was just too big a mess. It was easier to redo this video this way. So you'll see these in use in a hive coming soon. Take care and like and subscribe.